Welcome everyone. Oh, awesome. Welcome everyone to the July Marketo User Group Roundup. Really good to have everyone. We've got our British takeover today. So I'm with my co-host, Michael Tucker.
Hi, everybody.
And then today on the call, we've also got Emily Poulton and Adele Miller, who is also both very amazing people. They run the London Mug, and we're very honoured to have them today.
Oh, thanks for inviting us.
Great to be here.
And I love how I'm representing the slide. Poor Adele. Oh, there she is.
Hey!
There we go. There you both are.
Saving the best till last, I see.
PowerPoint.
Cool. So just a reminder that you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, and it will have all the recordings for all the different events. So we get this from the user group leaders and we upload them. So I think we have about 300 subscribers now or something, which is kind of nice. But I think we've started to categorize them as well, just making it easy and palatable to digest. So don't forget to go there. It will just basically take you to all the different mugs that have been. And then just a reminder as well that we're obviously on Bevy. Just sign up to our user group there as well.
So I just put a little session in here just to kind of promote some of the ones coming forward too. Like we're talking a lot about the ones that the Marketo user groups in July, but or in June, excuse me. But it's kind of neat to see that there's some good content coming up in July as well too. I thought we'd throw in a slide, Warren, that just kind of talked about an upcoming event that people could find on mugs.marketo.com about the Microsoft Dynamics mug. Being kind of reborn, reinitiated, whatever you want to call that. But it's been kind of dormant for a couple of years, and Brooke Bartos, one of the Marketo champions, head of the champion program last year, is reviving it, and they're doing a session on July the 15th, which is next week, about lessons learned by syncing Marketo and Microsoft Dynamics together. And guest speaker Mitchell Holbrook, who's from New Zealand, has a really interesting Marketo instance where he has 16 brands that are inside of his Marketo instance that are all tied into Dynamics. So I thought that'd be a good one to plug. Have you got 22, Adele?
Not a quiet day for Mitchell, is there, at any point during his career? I'm sure, with all of those instances to manage. That's insane.
I'm amazed that he has time to speak at a Marketo user group with all those instances. So I think an hour to get with him is one of those things that you kind of want to plug.
Probably in the middle of the night as well for him, isn't it?
I guess it is. That's a good point, because he's in New Zealand, right? 3 p.m. Yeah.
Maybe that's how he gets all his work done. He just never sleeps.
I'm sure he sleeps at some point.
If you're watching, Mitchell, tell us the truth.
Please tell us how you manage your day, Mitchell.
Okay, Warren, I'll throw it back to you. Sorry about the new slide there.
Oh, are we allowed to plug our Marketo user group coming up in August? Or no, it's not in August. It's in July.
Yes.
Yeah, we're in July now. Go ahead. Plug away.
Is it in July?
Plug on.
I mean, you know.
We know. It's in July. It's on there. We haven't got a description, but we thought we would give a teaser on this session. Shall I read out the teaser that we gave, Adele? Are we okay to publish that?
Yes, please. I would say so.
Okay, then. We've gone with interactive session with the Queen of GDPR, which is everyone knows is Inga, who's going to be our guest speaker. And the reason we chose GDPR as a topic is because on one of our last Marketo user groups, there was lots and lots of questions and interactions based off GDPR. So we thought that would be a good session to have. So we will update the Bevy page, but you can already sign up for it if you like, even if you're not in London, that's fine.
When is that one?
True. The 29th of July at 5 p.m. UK time. So a little bit early for you American folks, but if you can tear yourself away, Inga's always such an engaging speaker. We think it's going to be a great session. Or we hope so anyway.
And for those of you who are not familiar with the London Marketo user group, it's always very professional. Always great topics, great discussion. So just thought I'd call that out.
But also fun. Also fun.
I mean,
you make
yeah.
us sound like the nerds of
I
the
know,
next world.
so
We're quite
boring.
nice people.
I mean, we're all nerds, let's face it. So why we're in a Marketo User Group.
Let me ask you
We
about
do
this too.
actively encourage drinking during the time as well. We are fun people.
We usually share our drink at the start of the session anyway.
That's why you're so
We do.
popular. Like, how many people do you have in that user group now?
150?
Person, we were topping, yeah, we're in the hundreds. We did, Adobe hosted us very graciously at their headquarters in London. So we had a lot of nice drink, a lot of nice food, and it was a very social event. Whereas now our numbers they're not as big as they are in person, but we still get some great content and some great engagement. So it is nice to kind of see into everyone's houses and get a more relaxed vibe when everyone's talking, but I do definitely miss the in-person. Can't wait for the free drinks back at Adobe.
I know, right? Or at Russell's of
Russell's Garden.
It was my first user group, was the London Marketo one back actually last year, I think, in like February or something.
Oh, that was such
Was
a
the
good
in-person
time.
one, the last in-person one?
Yeah, I think it was the last in-person one. Was someone was like, you should go to the London Marketo user group, they're really good. I was like, no, but I know Marketo, I'm okay at it, and then I actually got loads out of it. So
I remember I
So
was
nice to
hosting your
hear.
group.
How did the two of you get into this? Just give us a quick background about yourselves. Like, how long have you been in the MUG, and how did you get into this? Just kind of at a high level.
Do you want to go? Do you want me to go?
You go first because you pulled me in. So
I did.
Oh.
Yeah.
So Adele and I used to attend the London user group when Marty and Neil were running it. And then it all kind of went quiet and I started working with Marty and I said, like, what are we doing with this London user group? And I basically stole it off him. But he said it was okay. He said it was okay. We were two of us. And I thought, well, let's have a third person. Please, can we have Adele? Because we'd met at a few of the summits. We'd met at the user groups. We'd met at the Adobe Summit and any other event. So we were kind of like friends via Marketo, which was lovely. And Adele accepted, and now like we're just like co-leaders, and it's lovely. And it's really nice to have two people. I know it's one of the, the pieces of advice that the leaders have, and it's really helpful because if someone's really busy that week, someone else can pick up the work. And Adele's been amazing at like bevy, and then one day, I had to put a page together and it was a disaster. I sent out all these random blank emails. Anyway, it's fine. I had Adele to say, Emily, cancel that. But it's just a nice thing to stay in touch and be together.
So Adele, you got dragged into this kicking and screaming. How did you get into this?
So Emily just asked me to join one day. They said they needed a third. And I mean, Marty, Emily and I have both been in the UK Marketo space now for, it must be coming up to 10 years. I was thinking about this just the other day, which is crazy.
I think it's more like 7.
To it.
Yeah, we're not that old.
I remember going to the original user groups with Billy. Was it Owlstone Technologies? Do you remember
Billy
tiny
and Richard?
Yeah, and Quack always used to take us out for drinks from Bright Talk, and it was always quite a raucous affair. But it's been years, so it's good to be able to formalise kind of a professional friendship with Emily through the user group. We've done Champion together, we've done different, groups and schemes, so it's just nice now to have our user group and just bring together so many people across the UK. So we call it the London user group because that's where we usually meet when we're in person. But it's grown now. We've got a lot of people up north with me. I'm in Manchester and Courtney's in Manchester, and we have a lot of people in Liverpool and various
Milton
Keynes as well. So it's now Milton Keynes putting us on the map through Warren. So we're getting about now.
Maybe we should rename it. Let's see.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thank you both for being on here, and we appreciate all the work that you're doing. Just to give a background then for the Marketo User Group Roundup, really what we're trying to do here is just do a quick synopsis of all of the different user group content that is happening within a given month. So, you know, to that end, we're quickly going in and we're just kind of highlighting some of the user groups that have happened. And then if you, the person that's watching this on YouTube, want to be able to catch up on the content, we have over 100 hours of user group content that's on the YouTube channel now. And there's all sorts of insights from leaders all over the world, and all sorts of Marketo thought leaders that are contributing to these different user group sessions. So it's a great place to be able to learn and grow, and also just like you know, Emily and Adele are talking about, make a whole series of new friends and connections to help fulfill your career and make the most use out of your investment in Marketo marketing automation software. So to that end, let's jump into the slides for a second here and then talk a little bit about the actual sessions themselves too. And, you know, Emily, I think this is your first time. Adele, this is your second time in the Roundup. Really what we're doing now is really just kind of round robining it, and then just kind of having each of us go in and then talk about a session that we were in or that we were at. I'll do an example to kind of kick things off, and then I think we'll just round robin it a little bit and go kind of Emily, Adele, Warren, and then just keep circling around until we you know, finish all the ones that we've covered. So session that I presented this last this last month for the Bozeman, Montana Marketo User Group, which is in the northwest of the United States for anybody who's not in the United States. And really my topic was all about being able to kind of build out and nurture programs that are not for people who are customers, that are actually for people that are internal stakeholders. So, you know, we all know about the flow step to send an email alert to people internally, but did you know that you can connect all sorts of other tools to Marketo to be able to nurture people? Think of like sales, or think of like public relations, or paid media is a really common one. So, you know, one of the things that I do is build out email alerts that will use the program ID token to be able to flag people back to the right program in Marketo. So if you're going to paid media, then you can easily find the right list to be able to link the correct people using Marketo Ad Bridge to a paid media campaign for like a matched audience or a custom audience in Facebook or LinkedIn. And so being able to set up content that actually helps to nurture some of these internal employees or internal agencies or stakeholders, especially with the growth and the talent shortage that we're all dealing with these days, is one of those key pieces that's that's really helpful to be able to kind of build out content. So that was one of the sessions that I did. That was again on June the 25th. So about a week or so ago in Bozeman, Montana, and you'll be able to see that in the on the YouTube channel. So let me pass it over. I guess Emily, we'll pass it over to you to do one.
Sure, you know, first time going first, you know, it's fine. Should I do it in order on your list here?
Whatever's good for you, whatever you're most comfortable with.
I'll start on the list. So because you did a nice advert for the Nordics Marketo User Group, so I attended that. I watched the recording for that one, and it was quite interesting actually, because it wasn't so much of you know, deep diving into Marketo itself. It was more around how to build your content strategy for it to work in conjunction with marketing ops and Marketo, which I thought was quite interesting, because I guess the audience there might have been more for field marketers and like our content colleagues. So I thought it was interesting. It was presented by Michael and Veronica, and it was very clear, and they had a really kind of, the recording, I think the recording's on YouTube now, and they had a really clear kind of breakdown of you have to plan your content in terms of like, where are you going to post your content? What format is it going to be? You know, should you just do one piece of research every month and then break it down into different pieces of content that your teams can use and share? And I mean, I think that's kind of, as marketing ops, this is what we dream of. It's like, yes, let's use this in our nurture campaign. Let's use this on social. Let's use this here. So I think that was really interesting. I mean, I'm personally love a good campaign, so that was interesting to me. And then they were just talking about what kind of team structure do you need people to build content, do you like how are you going to structure this, and then it goes into ideas. Can't remember what that was about, but there was a section on ideas, and then how they actually develop like the production and the development through to the conversion, and then obviously the most important part, which is like the analytics. And it was like, you know, set your KPIs, how are you going to measure this, and what are you going to do with the data, which are all questions that, you know, towards our end of the, you know, the pipeline, that's what we like. So yeah, I thought it was good. I don't know if did anyone else go to that one?
I watched the recording on that, and I thought it was one of those ones that is better for smaller teams, which often that we forget. So people that just are a team of 1 or 2 maybe, where they obviously they're big enough to have Marketo, but actually they need to enable marketing as well. So they are involved in that brainstorming because they had that marketing content marketing engine, which they called it. So I thought that was quite an interesting angle, and that it was actually better for the smaller marketing ops people, because we always forget, like, we're not all enterprise level. We don't always have like just dealing with tickets and things like that. Sometimes you get right involved into the idea creation, all of those elements to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are really good pieces. And congratulations, Veronica and Michael, to starting up a brand new Marketo user group. You know, it's a little bit of work at the beginning, but it's really rewarding as you get in there. And if you need anything from us as a community, and just a plug right now, if you go to mugs.marketo.com, sign up for their, you can sign up for the event, but you should also sign up to follow the group itself and the community, so that you get posts for all of the future events that they're likely going to be producing out of the Nordic space. This is the second month, by the way, that we've had a brand new Marketo user group. Last month was or excuse me, the month before June, in May, we saw the first event for the Richmond, Virginia, United States Marketo user group. So it's neat to see that they're starting to grow out and expand as well too. And I think we owe it to ourselves to learn more from new user group leaders that are offering fresh perspectives, and also to these people to be able to support, you know, burgeoning Marketo user groups as they're getting started up. Adele, let's hand it over to you. I'll pull up the slides again, and you know, take your pick, whatever you think is best that you want to be able to cover and summarize.
Perfect. So the first one, I wasn't lucky enough to attend this one in person, but it was the Portland Mug on June the 16th. It's run by Rachel and Jamie. And unfortunately, because it's a brainstorm session, they don't actually record them. So they can kind of foster an open and secure space for people to feel comfortable asking questions that they might not want to be documented, or if you're not feeling too confident, which personally I love. Like, it must be nice to have such secure space to know that your conversation is just in that hour and it lives there and that's it. But also gutted that I couldn't catch up on it. So I synced over with Rachel just to see how things went. And she kindly sent me a few bullet points on what they covered during their mug. And to be honest, this sounds like a mug that I want to attend in person, even though it's near enough midnight UK time. So just a couple of highlights that they covered. They discussed the art of convincing stakeholders to approve certain projects or to do things certain ways, which sounds like witchcraft, frankly. It's always a very hard skill, I think, that we have to try and foster within marketing ops and revenue ops and marketing, wherever you sit within your role. It's always very difficult to convince stakeholders, especially when it comes to technology, I feel. So I bet that was a fantastic conversation. They also discussed the pros and cons of working at an agency versus in-house, which is something that I feel Emily would be perfect to discuss at this moment in time if they're just making that big leap over to agency as well.
This one's recorded.
This one's recorded, yes, so we can't be as open. And they also talked about the attribution methods within Visible and other platforms, and lead source management, and when to use different types of source data. And when she sent me over these bullet points and we had a brief chat, I couldn't quite believe just the variety of topics that they covered during their short time together. It sounds like they've really developed an open, collaborative space for their user group, and I really like that vibe. So it's definitely something that me and Emily may be looking to do for one of our virtual events. Just get everyone together, have a chat, and just be open and honest, answer questions, maybe some that you're too scared to ask, and then that's it. It doesn't get recorded, and it just lives forever in the mind of the attendee, which I really like the idea of. But based on those bullet points, real shame that I couldn't get there in person because it sounds great. So well done, Rachel and Jamie.
Yeah, I appreciate you reaching out on that too. That's quite a time zone shift, I think, from where you are to where they are too. So
Yeah.
one of the things that, and maybe you all can speak to experiences historically about this as you're kind of learning from other user group leaders. We used to have, when we did Marketo Summit, when Adobe Summit in person, there used to be a luncheon for all of the user group leaders specifically to kind of mix and match, compare stories and all these other learnings. So neat to see what they're doing in Portland and in the Pacific Northwest. And kind of compare, what you do have kind of open conversations in the London mug, and you do have kind of a mix and mingle session too, don't you, at the end of your sessions where you're kind of comparing notes and doing problem solving?
We do, yeah, but it's always recorded because obviously we just record the whole session and post it. So we do have quite a lot of open discussion on our Slack channel. So I feel really lucky that a lot of people send me messages after the mug just to ask questions or something maybe they were too shy to speak up on. I love that because everyone thinks I'm super outgoing, but I'm the same. When I'm learning a new tool, I hate not knowing everything. So to actually have to ask a question, I'm really awkward. I'm like, oh, hand up, like, excuse me, sorry to interrupt. Like, I'm sorry, this is a stupid question. And I always prefix it with 1,000 things before I can actually ask the question. So yeah, I really like the idea when Rachel said it. I was like, oh, I'd quite like that. The questions you're too scared to ask. Yes, let's do it. What is velocity scripting? There we are.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
Should we just change our July session then? Boring, girl.
No, I can't wait for Inga. Maybe after, when we'll see
Right.
how the Euros go. We might need a bit of an August session to prep us up.
Inga would be fine. I've started working with her on a certain project, and she's amazing. She's so good.
Oh yeah.
Can't have
So
her.
lucky we've got her for this mug. Yeah, she's ours now for July, I'm afraid.
Let's Warren, let's toss it over to you. What's a good mug that you attended this last month?
Well, I didn't get to attend it, but I have been on it previously. But it's on a similar vein as Adele was describing. Is the Seattle mug? They always have their sessions as very just like discussion based ones. And this month, I believe it was also problem solving, which is just really nice. And they have that similar vibe where it's just, because their mugs, I don't believe, are ever recorded. They just basically are able to sort of jump on problems and just have more of that open, like you said, Adele, just that vibe of that open discussion about, actually, I've got this real problem. And I tend to find with those mugs as well, they just go off in tangents to explore a really interesting area, which is probably like similar to the Portland mug, where we're able to cover so much ground because it just naturally transitions into different tangents. So I wasn't able to attend that one, but I have been on that one before, and I can tell like Nathan and his little group is really, really good at what they do, and the discussions are really quite good there. But they had another problem solving one at that end.
There's a lot of talent in that part of the country as well too. With the Microsoft's a heavy Marketo user, and there's a huge workforce that's there, and also AWS. So I'm actually going to be there in person at the beginning of August at the marketing summer camp for the MoPros community, and we have a lot of champions that are in that neck of the woods that'll be speaking at that event. And a lot of it, when you look at it and you say, well, who do we get to speak at this it's one of the first in-person events that we have in the marketing operations space. But one of the things about filling out the agenda for that one wasn't too bad to be able to do, given how many different people that are in the technology space up in that part of the world. Real treat to be able to have a user group that's both of those user groups are in the Pacific Northwest there in that corridor between Seattle and Portland, and then extending further south into the San Francisco Bay Area. Really, that is kind of the tech hub central for most of the world in terms of being able to produce new content, new material.
The fact you're talking about in-person events as a British person blows my mind, because we've all been locked down for so long. And you're like, yeah, I'm just flying over here to get together with 1,000 people. And I'm like,
so it's not actually one of the things that I, when we put this together, I had this thought last year after Marketo Summit was canceled, or Adobe Summit was canceled because of COVID. I don't, as much as being in a room with 10, 11,000 people is interesting and opens up opportunities. The ones where we have that like 150 users in your user group, I've learned so much from those small interactions. And so summer camp was kind of an idea that, well, let's do something that's sort of outdoorsy, that's socially distant, that gives us the ability to be able to have, we're looking to get about 100 people at each of these summer camps. We have one in Atlanta, which is next week, and one in Seattle, which is at the beginning of August. And the idea was not to pack the room full of people, but to get, 50, 100 different people that are from the Marketo group, but then also, the MoPros encompasses all of the groups like HubSpot and Pardot and Eloqua as well too. So we have a really large I chair the Marketo part of that community, but there is a HubSpot chair she's really active and has a YouTube channel for them. And there's an Eloqua and a Pardot person. But the idea is that we're all talking about marketing operations as a profession, and not necessarily any one specific platform. And while we can learn a lot about the tools that we're using inside of the Marketo user groups, a lot of the same challenges that we face are faced by all users of marketing operations software, regardless, right? So that was one of the kind of impetus and kind of saying, well, let's take advantage of this while we can, and actually get everybody to come out to camp. And plus, it's a really great place to be able to go out to have a picnic and do the things that you normally wouldn't do at a conference per se, right? It's like the unconference conference.
I think those kind of discussions give you new ideas as well, because when I learned Eloqua and like HubSpot, for example, that gave me different ideas of how I would use Marketo in a different scenario, like their workflows and the visuals associated. That kind of helped some of my folder structure, for example.
Yeah.
Like little things like that, you just think, oh, that's quite interesting. So I think it actually helps learning other tools and getting, like you said, having those just discussions about how things work.
Yeah, I'm just finishing off an Eloqua migration right now and comparing notes with the Eloqua leaders that are handing over that, that we're retiring the Eloqua instance, but having that conversation, say, okay, what do we need to build in Marketo as we're moving from Eloqua to Marketo? It's interesting to kind of compare notes and see how they do things, how we do things, and how those challenges get addressed. I think it's off to, did I do a session? I think I just talked a whole bunch. So let me hand it over to Emily and see what she's got next for a user group session to cover.
Oh, thanks. So I was lucky enough, time zones allowing, to attend the Montreal MUG, the Frenchies. That was great. Oh, don't tell them I said that. The Francophones, but it was in English. It was in English. Definitely not French. So that was actually quite nice. I actually partook in that one, which I wasn't expecting to, but I gave them a heads up. I was just, I wasn't being a spy, but I was going to present at this session, and so they had a really interesting topic, which was about bots. So I know bots have been really, really hot at the moment in terms of emails, in terms of Marketo's new kind of feature. But the topic wasn't around email bots. And I know Adele has plenty to say around email bots and clicks, but it was more around how to stop bots entering the database in the first place. And I mean, I know there's lots of different roles and jobs, and that's not something that I've had to think about in the past. So I was like, okay, this is really interesting. And it was more around, ways to identify if you do have bots and why you should look at your bots and kind of boot them out the system. And, there was a whole bunch of reasons around they could be stealing data from you. It could be really bad, and had some examples with breaches. And I think, that is something that you as a user, you might not think about, oh, actually, I do need to look at these bots and make sure they're not going to steal any information from me, because that could be really bad. and they were, sorry, it's mitigating bots. There we go, my legal speak, getting ready for Inga. And and they were talking about like different ways to identify them. So have you got people in your database that have, you know, different like drop down options that don't match, like a field with drop downs? Do they have a value that doesn't match one of your drop downs? And things like that. And I've written them down, but basically I thought that was the most interesting part, like the non-logical data, and then how to find those people, and have a look, and then how to set some like bot traps. So like put some hidden fields in your forms with like a random field, but it can't be too random. If you call it like bot trap, some bots are really smart and they'll know that you're setting a trap. So it has to be something random, like annual salary or industry plus, or I don't know, something a bit more legitimate. I thought that was a really good idea.
That's the honeypot method, right?
Yeah, it's a honeypot method, but is honeypot just for emails, or does it count for forms? I don't know if that's the correct term.
The honeypot was the form field with the hidden field, and then you put a bit of CSS to hide it.
I thought the honeypot was when you put in fake links in your emails as well. Maybe it's both.
I think it's both.
Maybe
Yeah.
it's both.
Okay, there we go. We learned something new. So the honeypot method on the forms, and then obviously, sorry, I forgot to say. So that it was Kat and Carl who are presenting, and they're both at Marketo. Anyway, forgot to say that. They were great, very friendly as well. And anyway, so they were saying, you know, how to implement this, and they were showing, you know, Google have a free form recapture piece of software that you can implement, and they were talking about CSS and how to work with the developers. So they did go into detail on how you can actually implement this, and I believe they recorded the session. And then I'm reading my notes, but that was about it.
Nice.
But it was
That sounds like a great session.
it was really good. It was really interesting, I think, coming at it from a non-email perspective, but more on the forms and how people enter the database. And it does get pretty scary when you think about all the data that can be stolen. And I mean, you don't want to be that person.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. I just went on their page to see if they've posted the recording, and they haven't yet. So hopefully Carl or Kat will post that for everyone to catch up on, because I think that sounds really interesting. That's like right up my street, that.
Yeah, I thought so. Sorry, I stole that one from you.
Yeah.
They produce really good content, and one of the things about them is that they only do sessions when they have really good content. So that's one of those ones where, you know, you'll never see them post up a session where they're just like, we're gonna wing it and see what happens. They you know, if they don't have if they have a lull, I think I was chatting with them actually last year around this time. You know, August is usually a pretty quiet month in the Marketo User Group space worldwide, and he just said, you know what, let's hold off till September, because in September we know we'll have this time and we're going to talk about this. I forget what the topic was, but they have a really, really good content that is one of those things. If you see a session, expect to go there to learn something, to pick something up from them, because they you know, they have that experience. And then I can't remember who their co-leader, so they're from Marketo, but then one of their user group leaders is client side is, I think it's Genworth Financial, if I remember correctly. That might be
Yeah, Marnie Williams from, I want to say, it looks like Gene Tech, but it could be Jenny Tech. I'm not too sure.
Oh, Genetic Tech, yes.
I'm on their page stalking them right now.
So we make such a good duo. Fill in the gaps.
Speaking of which, Adele, you're up next.
So the one that I want to bring up actually is one that I'm sure a couple of members of this team will be aware of, and that's a European mug on the 22nd of June, hosted by our very own Warren and Chloe as well. And this month it's always fantastic, and I'm not just saying that because I like Warren as a person. It's always very, very interesting from a marketing ops, MarTech kind of standpoint, because the topics they choose can be perceived as being quite specific, but ones that you really want to get into. So it's never a dull moment on their mug at all. So this month was everything custom objects. They were joined by John Grundy from Accenture, who frankly blew my mind. So I've always been someone that does use custom objects, mostly through pre-designed API integration. So event platforms, so you can get session attendee information, like what session they've scanned into and where they've entered and that kind of variety of information. Love it. And also from Zoom Info, you can always get that kind of information as well. It's great. But hearing John talk about the really specifics about the custom objects and hearing how he uses them and what the restrictions are, and his mind works in a really interesting way, the way that he approached custom objects. I don't know if Warren will agree with me, or maybe it just sounds like I'm bigging up John, but he had such a clear view of how you could use them. And there was just so many different examples. So like a couple of key things that I thought were really interesting. I've wrote it down on the notes. If I look like I'm staring intently at the screen, it's because my notes are over Michael's face right now. So the custom objects can only be updated by the API, which means that they're super secure. So none of your users are going to edit it by mistake. Not that our users would edit any data by mistake. Of course, none of us have ever been in that situation as system admins that we've lost data due to user error. But it's really nice that you know it's locked down. I also find it very interesting that 50 fields is a default number on a custom object. I thought that was a lot higher than I thought it was. So that is really nice to know that you can have up to 50 fields on there, which is great. He also made it really clear that you can't currently use custom objects in segmentations, but he discussed a possible workaround where he called it flattening the value down to a person level field using nightly batch campaigns. And he talked about that in detail. So I definitely recommend you check out the recording because it is on the page already. And I'm sure it's on the YouTube because Warren was involved. And he also gave a good warning, which I thought was very interesting, in that he talked about linked fields on the custom object. So that's what links the object to the person record you want it to sit under. And he said it needs to be unique or a primary key. So straight away, my head went to email address. I was like, yeah, surely you link it on the email address. And he continued to say, no, not email, because you've probably got duplicates in your database. No one has a completely clean database. If they do, give me a call. We need to have a chat. But it was so interesting to just have, that was where my mind went straight away. Like, yeah, email's the common denominator in Marketo. It's where it dedupes. And he was like, don't use it because it's going to cause problems. Use an ID, use some sort of unique identifier in your database that you know you can attach things to. And it just made me, I was like, right, well, I need to stop assuming things. John just made me kind of question where my mind was going and my thought patterns around custom objects. So it was a really interesting session. And Chloe, at the end of the session, she just kind of hit the nail on the head and she was like, every day I learn something new about Marketo, even after all these years. And it's just one of those features, I think, that was released and a lot of people use them really in depth, and then other people just don't even think about custom objects unless it comes along with a new piece of MarTech that you've purchased as a team. So it's definitely something to check out. I think it was a great session. It's a really good length as well, so you can just have it on in the background and just listen to what's going on. I would highly recommend it, and that's not just because I like Warren as a person, of course. It was just really interesting.
Of course. No, I actually had to take that one from my car because I got caught in traffic picking my car up. So that was an interesting scenario to try and accept people on my phone as I was letting people in. But yeah, no, John is really great. And it's that one-to-many relationship because he used to work at booking.com where he had to use it quite a lot. So that's that e-commerce thing. So you imagine in a scenario where it's a certain booking on hotel and all the different price brackets, that's where that one-to-many relationship is a requirement. So it's more, that's where he gets a lot of his experience from there. But I like you, Adele, I'd only used it really with the API stuff. I'd created one custom one before, but it was like for motorcycles and stuff. But other than that, I mean, he's very technical as well, which is often nice. And equally, like you said, I think some of the better Marketo user groups explore the niches that you haven't explored in a long time and discuss around that, remind you how good that stuff is or how you can get around those things, so that you start thinking and questioning in your day-to-day whether there's new things I could start putting in here, there, or wherever. So
we've definitely sold it, guys. I put it in my list to watch now. It's on my watch list.
Yeah, we get paid per attendee, so you know, Warren will give me a sponsored link and I'll just coin it in now.
That's awesome. Warren, you've always said, you know, in the past that you and Chloe pick your content. You go really technical session, and then I think really strategic session. Do you have one coming up? What's your what do you, have you guys talked about the next one you want to do?
Yeah, well, so we're debating about the kind of the sales and marketing alignment, but that's kind of been like overdone, and we're kind of exploring topics at the moment. So I think our next one will probably be in August, but we are going to be, our next one is more strategic. We want to pick a topic that, and normally when we discuss on this and we meet up, we look at all the, because ours is always virtual, we look at all the topics that have kind of been done, what have been recorded, and try and find our own little niche in there, so it becomes an interesting topic to draw. But it always has to kind of relate to the day-to-day work. That's kind of our criteria. So
Okay.
no to answer your question, but it is coming.
Could I put forward the art of convincing the stakeholder? Because the Portland MUG didn't record theirs, and I think that sounds like such a good topic, because
Yeah.
I find that one of the most difficult things to do in any role I've had. So I think our excitement about technology and understanding is very hard to translate into why the money should be allocated, why the budget, you know, what difference is it going to make to sales and marketing? I always find that quite a difficult translation to do without either oversimplifying it or just getting way too excited and being like, oh, look at this great new tool.
Well, that comes back to that piece that I had presented at Bozeman beforehand too. So Rachel was in that crowd as we were talking about it, about the internally facing nurtures. So I had a client 4 years ago that we did a nurture, a gift card nurture that was based off of a learning management system. So part of the presentation I did in Bozeman was he actually did a webhook connection from Marketo to SAP Litmus, which is not Litmus, the email testing software, but Litmus is with an O, is a learning management system so that you can track your salespeople have done like a product training in this case. And if you complete the product training by this set date, you get a $50 Visa gift card, and we can automate that entire process, which convincing internal stakeholders to do something becomes a lot easier if you're going to give them $50.
You're
But
bribing them.
yeah, exactly. But so one of the many ways you could do it, right?
I was also I'm just going to do a shameless plug for Revenue Pulse, but they've launched like a new tough talks made easy, and I think one of the topics, did you see that one about how do I talk to my CMO? There you go. Yeah, that was came out of one of the brainstorming sessions, because I like Adele, I've been in that situation. I'm like, I don't know how to convince people, but this is the one that we need to write about this, Joe. That one's come out, so there you go. If you need if you need the link, you've got the link.
And not so shameless plug though, they are really good pieces of content. Those tough talks made easy, and that particular one that Emily called out, which is on the LinkedIn and stuff like that, where it talks about that CMO, goes into real depth around the data needed provided there, because I saw that one, I thought it was really, really interesting. But yeah, no, you definitely sparked ideas for our next Marketo User Group. I think we could do quite well there.
Nice. I love the birth of a new Marketo user group, and the birth, which we're working on another one, knock on wood, for in the next month or so, and now the birth of new ideas from the user groups as well too. Warren, I think you're up next in terms of the next user group to cover.
Yeah, I think I'm actually getting short in content, to be fair. I only attended or managed to attend a couple, but I was just going to piggyback off the EMEA mug, which I've already done. But there's certainly a couple of interesting ones coming up in July, but no further ones I can call up on.
Well, let me dive into one as to talk about what Amy Goldfein's doing. Oh yeah, do the champion one, because there is a lot of questions. Who was hosting that one? Is Chris Willis, wasn't it? Or was
that was Amy Goldfein actually this month for the tune. So basically that champion office hours has moved from Adobe over to Bevy platform. So it's now up to the champions to kind of promote that and do all the questions and stuff around that. So that is now available to sign up on Bevy. And basically we rotate whoever's champion, like whoever's one of the champions, to just kind of speak on that, whether it's on a particular topic. And then it's basically designed so that we get as many questions as possible. And there's a lot of Q&A there. So we're on the last one we had, I think it was Kyle, Amy, and I forget, but
there's like 3 or 4 usually though, right?
I mean, yeah, so you get a lot of the technical questions, particularly with someone like Kyle there. So Kyle from Palo Alto Networks runs a massive ops team. I think they're one of the biggest Marketo customers actually. But he has some really interesting insight for how he uses like API and Trade.io. And basically there's a lot of discussion now, and I'm seeing a trend with it around automating the automation. So bringing into things like Workato. So an example, one of the things I've been part of is basically on the creation of a ticket, using that to create the Asana, create the Salesforce campaign, create the On24, and also then it creates like the NAC email set up. Like we're getting close to that aspect, working with the NAC team. So you can do some really cool stuff with that. So, but definitely that champion user group is on every month. Bring the toughest questions you can, because the caliber of people they bring on there is just amazing. And I find myself like lurking in the background, like I'm going to ask a question.
Yeah.
It's not a mug if you're not lurking in the background, Warren.
I mean, it is true. I was going to say I'm a lurker, but it just sounds wrong. So we'll move on swiftly.
I was going to ask if anyone had attended or looked at the recording for the Japanese mug, because I'm pretty sure I watched a recording, but they looked very enthusiastic. But my Japanese is not up to scratch.
But they go into Marketo and they share it, because because it's so big, their user groups. I think, how many, Michael, is it now? Like
I think in total it's about 4,000.
Yeah, they're our rival.
Whoa.
They're our rival.
That's
I mean,
not our rival. That's
catching them.
insane. 4,000.
Well, we're like the second biggest.
Yeah, they have a small city basically full of Marketo people. They could start their own town if they moved to like a small town and have a Marketo bakery, a Marketo city hall, a Marketo car dealership. They have enough people to be able to populate all of that.
I think their structure as well is that they basically have different difficulty levels, because I was speaking with Tashi about the translations for what it is, and they have different difficulty levels for their different user groups. So that's how they cycle them, and they'll go into Marketo. So the one that I saw, for example, was like he was in the form and editing it. Obviously, I understood none of it whatsoever, but I did see that there was some interesting stuff going on screen that I could recognize. And I was like, so that, like you, Emily, that's kind of how I was able to kind of go, oh, okay, this is kind of interesting. I wish I could ask questions or understand it, but it's fine.
We'll give them a shout out because it was a good effort.
Yeah. They always produce really good content. We are working together on a couple of things to help bridge the language barrier, which we should see probably around the fourth quarter. So stay tuned. I include them in the roundup just so that we have them here, but understand if you're looking at this and maybe you're fluent in Japanese or you can use Google has a caption system that kind of allows you to translate it into English. It's sort of mixed. Yeah.
I've tried it on the French
automation speak though. That must be quite hard.
Yeah.
It doesn't work at all. I tried it on the Japanese and French one. I was like, what are they talking about? I was way more confused.
They break them up into, to Warren's point, into like foundations, into industries. So they have one for inside salespeople. They have one for a couple of different cities. And I recognize that we're coming up on time here, so I just want to touch base on a couple of last ones to really hone in on. We'll promote these as well too afterwards as we're launching the recording of this. But Amy Goldfine in San Francisco with Phil Wild, an up and coming Marketo champion, talking about really one-to-one personalized content in Marketo. And I loved it because there is a couple of different ways that you can do personalization in Marketo. You can use tokens, you can use local tokens, you can use dynamic content, you can use velocity scripting. And so Phil really went through, Phil is out of New South Wales in Australia, and he has broken out all of this framework basically with his consultancy to talk about when you should use one versus the other, and some of the best practices around that. It's recorded, it's up online. Highly recommend you view it. And
it's so good.
he is New South Wales, or is he? He might be in Melbourne now that I'm thinking about it. I get confused.
It
but
was
he's
just
in
a
Australia.
really interesting session, though. I took loads from it. I wrote loads of notes on that one, and it was really interesting just the way that he broke it down and really just gave me the specifics. He just does pros and cons on each one as well, which I think is always appreciated because he's really frank on how much effort something will take, like what you're going to get out of it, and that was really good. But one note that I did want to add is that Amy did say that she's looking for a co-lead for her sales, her San Francisco mug. Her co-lead has recently just relocated to New Mexico, I think she said. I probably got that wrong. So if you know anyone that wants to be the Salesforce, well, the San Francisco Marketo mug co-lead, it's really hard to say, give Amy a shout.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. So that's a really good one to note. And then just quickly, Raleigh Durham, always having kind of an open discussion, an open session that's available here in the Carolinas where I am. Was always a good one to talk through. And I'm just quickly doing a scan of anything else that we have not covered. Oh, and then, Inga, speaking of Emily and Adele's next guest, so Inga and Sanford Whiteman once a week will do an office hour session out of New York City, and love going to them. They are on a break until July the 14th for the American holiday, and I guess technically for the Canadian one too. The July the 1st and July the 4th are holidays here in North America. So they'll be back on the 14th, but that's a really good one to drop into. It's about 45 minutes long, and they usually will pick a discussion topic, but they will also have open question and answer. So you get an open 30 minutes to ask Sanford Whiteman anything that you want to about technology questions, and he'll answer it for you. So, and he'll, often ask you to kind of share your screen, and he'll work through these problems in his thought process live on screen, which is really interesting to watch if you ever get a chance to do that.
I'm always surprised how nice he is in person and how salty his responses are on the forum. That always gets me. It makes me laugh a lot. And then he's the nicest guy that you'll meet on the New York Marketo User Group.
Yeah. I feel like we've really bridged the gap now over like going to a lot of those user group sessions with him now. I feel like, I'm looking forward to this lifting just so I can meet him in person and get a chance to kind of interact with him the next time I'm up there,
He loves just helping, and he's very passionate about the community. So he's flagged to me a couple of times where we've had to take down some like spammy content, for example. So I had to reach out to the Adobe leadership team and get some of that stuff removed. So he's really passionate. He really cares for the community aspect of it, and it's really good to see.
Yeah. I think that's it for content. Emily, Adele, do you have anything that we've missed that we should cover before we go?
Adele, I'm sure you've got loads.
No, just the San Francisco mug. I didn't have a chance to go through all my points, but definitely catch that if you do have some free time, because Amy did a fantastic job with Phil. But this has been really enjoyable. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
Really fun, guys. Thanks.
guys, we love having you on here. If you're listening to this and you're a Marketo User Group leader, we would love to have you join Warren and I for these sessions. We do them once a month. We make an effort to make them the first weekday out of every month. Warren, I think we're going to take a little bit of a break here and for the summertime, just because August is kind of slower, and kind of combine July and August and recap on September 1. And we're also, this has been, I think a year and a couple of months since we've been doing this now. So we're looking for feedback and obviously to continue to make it fresh and also very useful for people that are attending the Marketo user groups and people that are running the Marketo user groups as well too. So if anybody has feedback, drop me a line. It's michael@conversionstore.com, or we'll be sending around a survey to everybody who's registered as well too. And just want to thank everybody. And Warren, any closing comments from your side of things?
No, I'm just having a coughing fit.
Okay, so that's the perfect time to throw it over to you.
Yeah, all good. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you again, everybody, and we'll have the recording posted on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, should have said this earlier, click on the subscribe link and the bell icon below, and we will see you at the beginning of September.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. That's
Bye.
great.
Thanks so much. Bye.